That works. So how
Great.
have you been? You run a festival as well, don't you?
Yeah, this has been a busy month actually, because the Fuzzies
Yes.
been 13 festivals this month, and then my film festival, Animation Chico, is on Saturday. So we're doing it
Oh, wow.
online. We're doing it for free online this year. I think next year we're moving back into a theater, but we just weren't sure what to expect. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Yeah,
How was
we weren't we didn't get the go ahead for the theater until like a month or two, I think, before. So then we kind of had a scramble to reorganize everything.
Yeah, it
So
was hard, and it was weird too because it seemed like things were getting better, and we were like, ah, maybe we
yeah,
should have gotten a theater, and then it got worse, and then so we're just doing our best. My during quarantine, my 5-year-old, he sees the movies I make, and I was telling him about whenever we watch them, like that's stop motion animation. That's what I do. And so he wanted to create one, so we created these like little short Lego animations, and we
yeah,
created a
sure.
Mother's Day animation for his mom, and with Legos that he made that look like him and look like her.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've done stop motion. It's tediously painful.
can be. Yeah,
And it was always like you know, I think I said like 50 times per session, like, don't hit the tripod, watch the
yeah,
tripod, stop, don't move the tripod. And it was continuously run into. So it was always a matter of like rearranging the
yeah.
tripod, but from the kids, I mean, yeah.
Oh, I've done it. So it's yeah.
Yeah,
I've ruined like 2 hour shots by bumping into something before.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we should start, at which I think we already have, since you've been talking about your background. So how did you get started in film production and animation?
Um, yeah, it's a interesting question. I have to think back because I so basically I graduated with my undergraduate was from Chico State, where I now teach, and then I was working a job for years that I actually started while I was a student, and it was unrelated to being creative. I'll put it that way. And it was um, taking all the creative energy out of me. And I worked there for a long time. I worked there for about 7 or 8 years, really trying on the side to do anything with my degree. I was like, I've got this art degree. I need to do something with it. But it's working in the arts, sometimes it's just not a clear path, you know? So I
Absolutely.
started a graphic design company, and I illustrated, did freelance illustration, did all these things. And eventually I decided to just go for it with my wife's blessing while she was pregnant. And I quit my job, and I said, okay, I just have to make this much per month to pay the bills. And like we made it work. And so that's kind of, I'm trying to like sum this up really quickly, but
Yeah, yeah. No, no worries.
what happened is because I had always liked stop motion animation, and I was just kind of curious how it was made, and I was fascinated with how it was made. So I tried to figure it out. I looked online for every resource that I could find. I bought a lot of the making of books of stop motion animation, and then when I'd find a tool they're using, I'm like, what is that? I'm googling it, trying to figure it out, and I slowly taught myself how to animate
Oh,
in
that's
my
wonderful.
garage. And this is in 2011, I think. And I spent like just slowly in my free time over, I don't know, 7 months or so, I animated my first film, which is called Wormholes, which is on my website. And it's not the best animation, but what's interesting about it is that I did it in chronological order.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I didn't know the story I was making. I didn't know anything. And if you watch it, you can see me get better and better at animating. Like the first couple of shots are rough. Um, and
Fascinating.
yeah,
Yes.
so I just loved it, and I kept going. And it was interesting because it was something that I did just because I wanted to do it. I didn't have any expectations, and people responded to it more than things that I had done for the wrong reasons, because I wanted people to see it or I wanted to make money on it. And so that was a big lesson for me. And I kind of continued. I just never stopped. I just kept going, and eventually quit my job and started working as a freelance animator. And eventually that led in all this led into me teaching animation, which is really fun.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, That's the best story. Cause like, the kids now are all applying to college and that we work with, and they're all stressed and trying to figure out like, what will I major in? Where should I go? And I try to get across the point, like, it's not really that important. Like, do what you want to do. Like, you can go major in something and then get a job in something else and then completely change your mind and do something else, or maybe do 4 jobs at the same time,
Yeah.
which I've done many times in my life. So, I think that's great that you were like, I love this, I'm going to learn it online. And now that's what you do. I think that's fabulous.
Yeah, it's the other thing is I didn't know I wanted to be a filmmaker really, and I didn't know how. And I thought stop motion was a really great way in because I can control all the sets, the actors, the lighting, the editing, the sound. Because I came from a music background. I was in bands and did the singer songwriter thing and stuff. And so it was just like a reason to just do everything and learn it on the go. And now I'm getting like more incorporating actors in with the stop motion animation.
That's amazing. So how did the idea for Fuzzies come to you?
Actually, maybe I should just start sharing
Sure.
my,
Yeah, if that's part of your presentation, by all means.
because we get,
And whose bathroom is that in the photo?
it is my father-in-law's
Oh,
bathroom.
wow. So it is. That's
But
wonderful.
but I did do some things to make it work.
Did you put up the black wallpaper, or did he have that? Because I mean,
Oh,
these are the things I think about. I'm like, so somebody really has those tiles with the black wallpaper, like, or was that
yes.
staged?
No, it is, and I'll get to it. I'm going to skip a few things because I just talked about these things. But here's some pictures of
Yeah, very
like some of the
cool.
projects I've worked on, and me out in my cold studio in January, animating puppets. This was that first film I talked about, wormholes. This was actually probably the shot and the moment I realized I wanted to do this.
That's
because
wonderful.
I woke up and I did not want to go to work, and I didn't feel that well, but I felt well enough to go to work, and I called in sick and I just animated all day. And I remember at the end of this day, I was like, this is like magic. There's something really cool here. And I don't know if it's good, but I really like doing this and I want to keep doing this.
That's lovely.
And then I ended up doing some work. This was from a horror film that was eventually distributed by Troma called Dolly Deadly. And they wanted me to animate dolls talking.
Wow.
Stuff.
Initially, I was looking at the tray thinking I was going to see sushi. And then I was like, oh no.
Oh no, it's
doll heads.
Doll heads, yeah. And then this was from my last film, Three Keys, where this is kind of the bridge from what I was doing to where I'm at now. I think that I had a lot of puppets and
Yeah.
but had actors and was starting to play with themes and horror themes and stuff. And also I do music videos and this is a process that I did in a recent music video where I was slowly deteriorating these styrofoam heads and as an animation process. And then I composited human eyes inside to like look around while it was happening. So I'm constantly looking at things and trying to figure out how can I bring that to life? How can I animate it? So when it comes to animation, this is something I ask myself all the time, even though I've been animating for a while, but I try to find out like, why do I like stop motion so much and what makes it unique? And these are the things I've figured out over the years. The first one is that it's an illusion that brings inanimate objects to life. That's kind of obvious, but what makes that so realistic is that you have real light and real shadows hitting real objects. And I think that's what makes it so just so something magical about that, because there are some CGI shots and films that can accomplish this, but a lot of times it falls a little short on that. And I think it really does come down to having real objects interacting with environment. Let me do this. Okay. Oh, there we go. It also can incorporate other media. So you can make a stop motion with a series of drawings, with paintings on glass, with sculpture, and pretty much anything. I mean, and photography is a big part of stop motion as well. And this is one of my favorites. There's traces of the animator present in the animation. And so some people who don't like stop motion animation or think it's cheesy or whatever, I think that's what they're responding to a little bit, but that's what I like about it, that there are these imperfections. So one example is if I have a puppet that has a lot of fur on it and I go to move the arm, I have to hold the head so that not everything moves. And every time I touch the puppet, it leaves this little trace, this little, like, they call it boiling or chatter of me as an animator. So I'm leaving my fingerprints and my imprint in between the frames, even though you don't see me. And then it's also really unsettling. And this is why I think it's great for horror films. And the reason that I think it's unsettling is that we are used to seeing with our eyes, if I had my hand up and then I suddenly moved it, everything from where I started to where I ended up, everything in between is blurry. But in stop motion animation, you have objects that are perfectly still. So every time you take a picture, it's perfect clarity. And that's not natural for our eyes to see when something's moving quickly. And so it's a little unsettling. It's even though it's real and it's really was really in an environment, it's not natural in a way. And
Sure.
some people do this. Some people add motion blur to get rid of it, and that makes sense in some cases. And I've kind of done a little bit of both. Did you have a question?
No, I was gonna say, like, often in our, workshops, we explain to the kids or youth that, there's a psychology to watching a film that you have to why you have to follow. So they're like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? And I think that fits into that understanding. Like, it's just how the human eye and how the brain perceives certain things, like the 180 rule, like, right, nobody understands it when they first hear it. But I think it's similar. Like, if you don't see the blur between, how it can be unsettling.
Yeah, sometimes we don't know why something is effective or why something
Yes.
works, but yeah, if you evaluate it, you do. And one thing I like to do, a way to teach myself, is I go on YouTube and I pull up a clip of a stop motion shot in a film, and if you take the comma button and the period button, you can go back or forward one frame at a time. So I like to see, like, what were they doing frame by frame? How did they accomplish
Oh,
that
that's
shot?
wonderful. Yeah.
And I've actually learned a lot from
So the
doing
comma
that.
and the period together, you're saying?
Yes, no. So you press the comma, it goes back a frame. You press the period, it
Oh,
goes forward a frame.
good to know.
And which is great, because when they made films like this, they never intended anyone to do that. So you find a lot of tricks that they used. There's a filmmaker that I'll probably talk about in a minute, named Schweinkmeyer, who's a Czech surrealist animator, and I did that with one of his films, Alice. And I found out how he made this illusion, which was in each frame he had cardboard cutouts of the actress, and then sometimes they were dolls, and it showed her, like, from shrinking to getting bigger, and it was a combination of dolls, the real actress, and cardboard cutouts with her face on it. And it
Wow.
happened so fast, you wouldn't know that unless you stopped it frame by frame.
Fascinating.
There's different types of stop motion animation, and I've tried all of them, but there are some that I like more than others. Puppet animation is, just like it sounds. You're using puppets. They could either have a wire or a metal armature, and what that means is a skeleton, basically. And I use that a lot in some of my other films. I only had, I think, 1 or 2 puppet shots in the Fuzzies, but they're very quick. Object animation, this is something that I use a lot in the Fuzzies, and I'm starting to like more. It at first it seemed like just too simple, and not something about it was not as appealing or as fun as seeing these amazing puppets and stuff. But I ended up liking object animation more and more, because it really feeds into that illusion of, your environment is coming to life and things are coming to life.
Very effective. It was very effective.
And then pixelation is a form of animation where you're using a human as a puppet. And this goes back to that kind of unsettling quality of a, having perfect clarity. Well, when someone tries to hold their hand still and you take a picture and then they move it and take a picture, it actually comes out kind of like shaky and unnatural, which is, that's actually a horror effect that I'm seeing done digitally now, where they'll have someone walk really slow and they speed it up, and it like has a shaky look, and it happens with pixelation animation. And I did
Wow.
use some of that in the Fuzzies. And then Claymation, which is what it sounds like, you're using clay. The advantage of Claymation is that you can morph things, from one thing into another, but the material itself is really present in that form of animation. And this is one of my favorite to watch, but not one of my favorites to do.
I would imagine it's hard to keep them all the same temperature. Do they have issues with that? Like,
yeah, you have to kind of, I don't know enough about it because I gave up on Claymation pretty quickly, but it was, yeah, you have a lot of freedom in how you can do things, but there is, if it gets too cold, then you're really pressing down. You have to keep the temperature just right. And then, that is one where you really see the animator, their fingerprints are all over it, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I started to make the Fuzzies, it was during quarantine here in California.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, you might see it in the film, some of the subject matter and stuff. But I remember, we all went through this period of just kind of disbelief and like, what are we living through right now? This can't be happening. This can't be real. And it felt like something out of a zombie film, or it just didn't seem real. It felt like we were living in an alternate reality. And after that passed a little bit for me, then I'm at home, I'm working from home, my wife's working from home, my son is about to start kindergarten from home, and we are living in, having to like think about our space a lot. And I instantly thought, like, I need to make something. So how do I keep my sanity? I create something as fast as I possibly can.
Yes.
And I just started writing down my observations, my thoughts, things that were on my mind, watching a lot of movies, which we all did. And I thought, what do I have access to during the quarantine? And my father-in-law has this amazing bathroom, and I love the guy, but he has a very unusual taste in, and he has this bathroom that had a lot of stuff in it. It had pictures all over the walls and like little statues and things, but the bathroom was made in I believe the 20s or 30s.
Mm-hmm.
But
the tile would be that, yeah. That
yeah,
era.
but the wallpaper, I feel like it's the 70s or 80s or something. I don't know. I've never seen wallpaper quite like that. And I went over there to see if he was okay one time, wearing a mask, and I went to use the bathroom, and I was just like, I can make something in here. This would be a good challenge. Or what can I do? And it is a really small space. So I have a location. He said I could take everything off the walls and I can do whatever I want in there and take as long as I want. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to act in this. So I thought, my brother-in-law, Dustin Bott, he did acting in Georgia before he moved out to California and married my sister. And he kind of showed an interest in working with me. And I thought, well, that would be good because I'd have access to him, and he wouldn't complain too much because we're related. And so he agreed to do it, was pretty excited about it. And then it was just my camera, basically. I did have to buy a lens, a 12 millimeter lens, because it's such a small space and you just can't get certain shots. So that was really one expense I had to spend. So then I spent a lot of time in there just thinking of like, how can these limitations inform the story? And I really did. I studied the room. I took a lot of photos, and I just sat there on the couch while I'm watching Netflix and just looking at the room and going, oh, I could that
Sure.
moves. I can animate that. Or, oh, he could be in the bathtub. He could be on the toilet. He could be this. What could I do with the toilet? And that started to inform my story. And then I also had to think, like, how can we stay safe? So I wanted there to be more actors, but I decided to put puppets in instead. And the puppets came from, I'm a huge Jim Henson fan. Just think he was one of the greatest people ever. And I was watching a lot of children's television with my son at the time, so I thought, why
Sure.
not? Let's see what we can do, because some of the children's television is a little unsettling too.
You think?
Yeah.
I used to work at Sesame Street, and then Nickelodeon, and then actually was part of the team that launched the Noggin channel. So
Wow.
and yeah, there was definitely people are very interesting in that field.
Yeah. Maybe I'd fit in children's television. Maybe not. I don't know. But that's awesome. I would like to talk more about that at some point. So another thing that informed the Fuzzies was my previous film, Dark Ride, which was an experimental animation that mixed all kinds of animation and live actors. And
Wow.
it's on my website, joshfunk.com, if anyone wants to check it out. It's very different from the Fuzzies. But one thing that I carried over was this idea of making a story in one room and thinking of how you can kind of make a space very surreal and do things that you're not expecting with it. So here's a picture of me doing my going through and trying to find some B-roll, because right away when I wanted to film, Dustin couldn't come from Oakland because the Bay Area was under strict lockdown. So I spent a lot of time going in there and just animating what I could and taking some shots. I did a lot of. Oh yeah.
Did your father-in-law have a second bathroom?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
good. I see. Just a thought.
But he did use this one as his main bathroom. So part of my job was I cleaned it right before we filmed every single time. So I've probably cleaned this bathroom more than he has at this point. But I did do some storyboards.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I did an animatic of the first act of it, where I took the storyboards, put them together in movement so I could understand the pacing and try to figure out what I was doing, because I had an idea, but it was hard to put into words because it was very unusual.
Yes.
Yes, it was. The three biggest influences for the Fuzzies were probably Jim Henson, pretty much anything Jim Henson related, but I'll just say the Muppets or Sesame Street, and Evil Dead 2 by Sam Raimi, and which, he did stop motion in this film as well, and he did a lot of traditional or practical camera tricks. And Jim Henson even did stop motion earlier, or did some for Sesame Street early on.
He did some trippy stuff. Like, he wasn't always a child's, like, he actually reluctantly got into the children's television world.
Yeah.
It's a long story. There's a great exhibit at the museum nearby, the Museum of the Moving Image.
I actually, when I was there, I wanted to go to it, and then right when I arrived, I looked on their website and found out while I was there they had shipped a lot of that stuff to California.
Of course.
Right while I went all the way across the country, and should have done my research. And then Alice is a good example by Jan Schweinkmeyer, and I don't even know how to describe him. He's just incredible. Try and watch something of his. It's very intense. Before Jan Schweinkmeyer, Michel Gondry was a big influence on me too, and he uses a lot of stop motion animation, and both of them, it's just so rich with things and movement, and I can't always sit through the entire film. Sometimes I have to take a break, but I love them.
Yes.
So going back to this idea of object animation, this is kind of what I meant. So in the Fuzzies, I would look at something, I go, okay, I can slowly move the drawers open and close. That would be something. So why would I do that? And it's like, what's the camera angle that looks best? Okay, it looks best here. Okay, so he needs to be in the bathtub. So the animation kind of informed the storytelling a little bit.
Yes.
And I also, so I would go frame by frame and try to figure it out. And then sometimes, I'd have an idea. I get a lot of ideas while I'm washing the dishes or taking a shower for some reason. And like this popped into my head of opening a drawer and just having orange fur go everywhere. So even before I knew I was putting puppets in this film, this was the first image that kind of led to it. And but again, Dustin couldn't come to Chico because of quarantine. So I animated myself opening the drawer. So that's me. It's supposed to be his hand, but it's my hand animating it. And
Sure.
so I would slowly open it and then animate a little bit, open a little more, animate it, and so on. I even animated dirt, which you probably wouldn't even notice, but maybe now that I pointed out, you can find it. There was a shot where he puts his ear up to a door and there's this kind of tunneling and this fur goes in. So I
That's the
animated,
dirt.
yeah, I animated dirt against green screen or a green piece of paper and then duplicated it over and over in After Effects to kind of get this drilling feel, drilling sensation. And anytime I could think of, like, even if it was a shot where I thought I could just film it, I tried to animate it just to sprinkle animation throughout the entire film. So this is one, my son drew this. I said, I need a picture of Dustin. And I tried to make a drawing like a kid, and it's hard. It's really hard to do.
Yeah, it is. It is.
They have such a great style and imagination. So I said, okay, I need you to draw something for me. Okay, he needs 2 eyes. He needs a mouth. He needs a beard. He needs arms. And he would just do it. And it was better than anything I ever would have done. And I animated the drawer opening and the crayon moving down. This was the first shot I animated in the film, the toilet paper roll. And I thought it'd be great to not give him toilet paper if he's stuck in a bathroom. That would just add to the suspense and maybe humor.
Also, that is like a relic. That is a like 1980s toilet roll Glade thing, right? That I haven't seen those in forever.
Yeah, I'd never seen this until I was spending a lot of time in this bathroom. And then I took the toilet paper off just to see what was behind there. And I found that and it's like, this is going in the movie.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a classic.
And then this is an example of, so this is something I animated where I wanted there to be this ripping on the wall, but I didn't want to ruin his bathroom. And he said I could do whatever I want. It doesn't matter. But I said, it was a long shot. And I was like, by any chance, do you have any of this wallpaper somewhere? And he's like, yeah, it's in the basement. And I was like, yes. So I went down to the basement and set up in my studio here and animated it to kind of, and I think a lot of people think this might be a built set because of shots like this. Because like, how did they do that? They must have had fake wall there. This is what the setup is like while I was animating. I had to move things around a lot. So this is everything that was under his sink was in the bathtub, and I kind of set up there. And it's a very small space, so my camera had to really straddle the toilet. And even you can see the tripod down here. It was just barely out of the shot. I mean, I did my best to not get that in the shot. Another thing I do, a way that I animate is called straight ahead animation. So there are people that do keyframe animation where they really they plan out the first motion and then they know it's going to get here and then here and so on. I like to do straight ahead animation. I have a rough idea of where I'm going, but then I let things happen. It's kind of like improv animation. And this is a shot that is a perfect example of straight ahead animation. So I knew that I wanted this towel to come off of the rack and to like wrap around him and attack him and try to suffocate him. And there'd be this struggle. And then I thought, well, maybe the towel's going to go into the bathtub, or maybe it's going to climb up the wall, but that's all I knew. So you can see here that my arm is holding the towel because I couldn't suspend it there, and I was just making it up as I was going along. So I had to get rid of my hand later. And the way that you do that is by creating a plate. So I had this on a tripod,
Mhm.
and there was a shot where his arm and the towel weren't in it at all. And I was able to then delete my hand, and underneath that layer in the computer is the layer, the plate, where there is no towel and is no hand. So it's deleting the hand and revealing that background without anything.
Wow. Yes.
And I have to do that. I do that a lot. It's better for me. It's better than doing like green screen and stuff like that. So then I knew it was going to go onto his face, and you can see again, I had my arm is in the shot in the mirror, and I had to paint it out with Photoshop for about probably like 3 or 4 frames. And then I got here and I was like, oh, it's going to climb up the wall. So I taped it frame by frame, and I had wire on the inside of the towel.
Gotcha. I was
So
saying, was it starched?
no, I tried a few things. I actually bought a lot of towels to try to figure this out, and I ruined a lot of towels that way, cut them up and had different sizes and stuff. But I sewed this metal wire behind that towel, and then I had to go in and paint it out with Photoshop.
Sure.
So, but when I got up here, this is the part I wasn't expecting. As I'm trying to wrap it around the towel rack, it starts to almost form a face. And then I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is almost like a mouth, and I could kind of do something with it here. And it almost looked like a pig face in a way. And you could see the wire up by the ear, and that I had to paint that out too. But this was a straight ahead animation thing that I did not plan. And this is why I like working this way, because these happy accidents happen. And
yeah, I have to say that was my favorite part.
Yeah,
hello.
Yeah, it was fun. I'm glad glad you liked it. That's one of my favorite parts. So I talked about puppet animation a little bit earlier. I didn't do a lot of puppet animation, but this is a puppet from one of my films called The Spaceman.
Wow.
About a man, or a man who builds a cardboard spaceship and goes and fights an alien monster. And the inside of these, it either has a wire armature, wire skeleton, or a metal one. So the one on the right here is a metal ball and socket joint armature. This is what you'd see in something like the puppets in A Nightmare Before Christmas, or something of that quality. But I did make a couple puppets, and one of them was this one right here. Again, this is because I found out that there was a tooth holder or a toothbrush holder built into the wall, and that it rotated. And when I opened that up, I was like, oh, okay, I've got to do something here. So I made a puppet that just fit it. And the other one I did was right here. So I didn't make this puppet, but this was one of the background hand puppets. And I thought, well, maybe I can animate this. So I shoved newspaper in it and wire, and I animated a walking cycle with it. And this ended up becoming a shadow that goes past at one point. So I think that's pretty much all the puppet animation I did. I also tried to do some practical illusions. This shot was made with Mylar. So I had, and actually this is not Dustin either, because he couldn't come down. So my brother filled in, put on his clothes, and that barely fit, and did it. And we had Mylar over the over the mirror, and then he touched it and it did the whole thing. And then I had him stop. I took the Mylar away, and then it was the regular mirror. And then I had him continue the motion, and I had to do a little bit of manipulation in After Effects to make that look okay.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
One of my favorite filmmakers, just because of I wish I thought like him, was Georges Méliès, because right when cinema started, right away he recognized what he could do with it, because he was a stage magician. And one of my best friends is a magician named Wayne Houchin, and we talk about magic and illusion all the time, and he creates tricks or illusions that he performs and other magicians perform. And I think of cinema as a magic trick in a way. And with Georges Méliès, he did in the Four Troublesome Heads in 1898. He had a very simple idea where you stop the camera and someone replaces something, and then you start the camera again and you continue the motion. And he also was masking things and duplicating, and it just so far ahead of his time. And this kind of illusion was even used in 1977 in Star Wars. There's a shot where Obi-Wan Kenobi gives Luke the lightsaber and then he turns it on. And if you watch that, that was the same technique that was used in 1898.
Wow.
So I tried it and I had this shot where Dustin had like frantically gets out of the bathtub. And then right when he gets there, I say, stop. And then I bring the towel and I put it over his head. And then I get out of the way and the camera's rolling the whole time. And then I say action. And then he continues the motion and the struggle. And but the difference is that I used Photoshop to add about 3 or 4 frames of a towel flying out of the bathtub and landing on his head. So I kind of used the technology that I had to continue that. Another thing I like to do is, this is an effect you'd see in like the old Parent Trap movie or any of the old movies where they had one actor who's pretending to be 2 actors and they just wouldn't come too close to each other. So I would always pick a point where I didn't want him to cross, and then I would go in and I would animate frame by frame so I could bridge stop motion and live action. So instead of me using stop motion software and clicking pictures, I just kept the camera rolling and I would just open it, step back, open a little bit more, step back, and then I had to kind of piece it together in the computer.
Wow.
I did a little bit of green screen. I'm not a fan of it anymore because I did so much of it on my last film, and it is a lot. But I did that for some puppets because I had to have puppets coming out of things. And this shot was one of the hardest. So I animated the drawers opening, and then I would put film the puppets against green screen on my own in my studio, and then have to composite them together. And the hardest thing was, the hardest thing was dealing with fur and green screen. I didn't know that was a thing. I wish I had talked to you since you know people at Sesame Street, but it was way harder than I thought because it's not a salt, like a really crisp line that you're keying out. And I don't even know how I got through the shot, but it was such a quick shot. I was like, it's fine. So I'm going to wrap up pretty soon here, but I just wanted to talk in case anyone's seeing this later and they're curious about like some of the things that are important.
I'll definitely use it with my classes. So by all means. Okay,
perfect. So with stop motion,
if that's okay with you, obviously.
That is totally fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah. But thank you for asking. So there are certain things you need for stop motion animation. You need software, but you can use smartphone now and do amazing things. So there's some free software called Stop Motion Studio that works for iPhone and Android, and you're just using your smartphone's camera, and it works great. But what I used is Dragon Frame software, which is it's great. It syncs up with digital cameras where you can see everything you're working at. If you make a mistake, instantly. You want controlled lighting because if you're working by an open window, you're going to get this flickering. The light's going to change between shots because sometimes you take a picture and it takes you 5 minutes to get the next setup before you take the other picture. And between then, a cloud can go by and create this flickering effect. And some people find that really charming with stop motion. But if you want options, I would not be in a room with windows and try to have your own LED lights if you can, or some other controlled lighting. Camera, I kind of mentioned this, but a smartphone or a digital camera of some kind. And a tripod is really important. We talked about this earlier before we started, but one reason I have a tripod is so that people are really focusing on the animation itself, and they're not distracted by all of the movement of the camera. But it's just, yeah, so it's better on people's eyes, but also you just have more control. And if you really want a shaky look, there are things you can do in a computer later to kind of give it a handheld look.
Mm-hmm.
But tripods are a must. And then finally, if you can get some kind of remote trigger system, like a Bluetooth remote that syncs up with your phone, or if you're using Dragon Frame software, you can just use your keyboard to do that. And that way you never have to touch the camera. So Dragon Frame is the industry standard. This is what they
Oh,
use
wow.
in all the Leica films, like Coraline and the Box
Mhm.
Trolls, Kubo, and all those. And it's, considering how long it lasts and what it does, I feel like it's a really good price. It's $300 once. I had Dragon Frame 2, I think it was the first one I got, and I still have it on an old computer, and it still works fine, because really all it's doing is taking pictures and putting them together in a sequence. So yeah, if you can, this is great. But if not, there's free stuff. If you are using Dragon Frame, there's cameras that they recommend, because you need a camera that works with something called live view, so that you can see a preview of your animation while you're working on it.
Yeah.
Before digital cameras, you really couldn't, and so you had to guess or use other tools to make sure you were accurate. And sometimes you get the dailies back and it was not right and you had to redo it. Not anymore. Inside the software, you have options to change the frame rate, like how many frames per second there is.
Mhm.
And you can copy a frame, delete a frame. You
Oh,
can,
that's great.
like, even on a shot like this, I don't think I did this, but you could animate the drawers coming out and then copy all the frames and paste them in reverse. So then it'll come out and then close without you having to animate it all again.
Wow. Yeah, that's very useful.
Yeah, it's very useful, very efficient. And then finally, you have you can adjust the camera settings in Dragon Frame without ever touching the camera. So you can change the aperture, shutter speed, and do tests to see if it's the look that you wanted. So if anyone's serious about this, I would highly recommend Dragon Frame. So that's pretty much everything. Are there any questions or anything? I kind of tried to be thorough.
You were very thorough. No, it's wonderful. I thank you so much for doing that. It's like I watched it just going, okay, how did he do that? How did he do that? So you hit every point that I was curious about: the mirror, the coming through the wall, the tell animation. I loved it. So
Thank you. That's a great response, because that's how I feel as a movie lover. Just like, I watch something and I go, how did they do that? When I'm fooled, I love it. Okay, how did they do that? Maybe they did it this way or this way. You could do it this way, but it's
yes.
fun not knowing.
How did you do it? And also the overall theme of it, right? It's never really resolved as to why or how or what, which kind of, I think, was very fitting given the time that we're in. Because it's still, nothing's very resolved at the moment. Everything's still kind of hanging in that why, how, what, like, I think we're all kind of in that ether, in the upside down, if you will. So
yeah, it's definitely not resolved. I have theories, and Dustin Vaught, who acted in it, has theories, and I've heard other theories, and it's fun. There's a lot of answers to maybe what's going on.
Well, I think it allows for a lot of self-projection, right? Because of the fact that it doesn't give you a hard, this is it, right? So that's, and I think that's always great, because it helps you. I think it helps people think through their own things, and I love those kinds of films. So all in all, fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Martha, any questions?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna ask you, how many days did you film? It took you to get the whole thing.
As far as days go, I got to remember this. For filming with an actor, I think it was 2 weekends. So it was a Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, so 2 weekends for most of it. And then I did have him come back for the third act. Actually, this is something So I had this whole other third act filmed and it just wasn't working. And I was like, it's not quite right. Dustin, I'm sorry. I think we need to come back. And he's like, okay. So you don't want me to shave my beard? I was like, no, don't shave your beard. And he's like, okay, I'll come down next weekend. I was like, okay. And then he can't come down because of another lockdown. And then it keeps going and going. And I was like, don't cut your beard. I have an idea. Your beard, make it as long as you can, make your hair as long as you can. And we're going to work that into the film. And then because of that, and he started looking, he's like, please let me cut this. It looks so terrible. And people at work are asking me questions. And so then I worked it in the film and I thought, I was like, oh, this is so much better than what I had planned. And this is, so I think of this film as like a collaboration almost with the times that we're in. I wouldn't have made certain choices without it.
So you, like filmed by Josh Funk and COVID.
And the pandemic. Yeah. It's like, or more specifically COVID.
Is Funk really your last name?
It is, yeah. I get that a lot. But
that is like, because it just fits the genre. So then you're like, is this a pseudonym or?
Yeah,
Puppets are really funky. I love them. Did you design them?
No, I designed the one I showed you, but I had 3 puppet makers working on this. Stephen Barkley in Canada, My Custom Puppets in San Francisco, and Jeff Aiden in Arizona. So I found some of the puppets on Etsy, and I wrote, I said, hey, I'm doing this thing. It's unusual. This is kind of what it's about. Are you okay with me using these? And like, are these one of a kind and whatever? And they were fine with it. But for 2 of them, I had custom made based on illustrations. And so the toilet puppet was a custom one based on my illustration. And then the final puppet of Dustin was based on photographs of Dustin. So those were done by My Custom Puppets in San Francisco.
Super cool. I love them. I love the puppets. Super cool. Thank you very much. I didn't know much about the stop motion, and it's very interesting. Really.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, the puppetry is fun, and this is my first time into this kind of puppetry. But yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wondered because I didn't realize the image of the puppets in the bathroom was green screen. So I thought, and I know, if you're going to hand control puppets, you need a lot of staging because you need places to hide the puppeteers. And I was like, okay, so is the whole bathroom a stage? Like, how much money was in this film? So you kind of start to try to figure it all out. So this is amazing. I love all the answers.
Yeah, I wish I could have built this set because I would have done other things, but yeah, just kind of working in with my limitations. And
I think that's helpful though. The end product was definitely wonderful. So it got you there, right?
Yeah, we made it work.
Thank you so much for all of this, for sharing your film with the festival, for sharing all of this information. I can't wait to share it because it's the kind of thing I just absolutely love. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. And it's great to be a part of Astoria Film Festival. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yay.